Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to view 65. So, I would say that this movie is worth streaming. I wouldn't run to the theater to go and see it. I would wait till it's streaming somewhere. Or you can obviously go on and check it out on an app called Zelliphonic. Zelivonic. Zelliphonic. Hopefully you go on and find that app via the Google Play Store and be able to watch 65 for absolutely free. There's no fees of any kind. Just go into it, check this movie out, and you can check out a ton of others. At some point, it'll probably tell you to oh, you need to share this, but you can kind of eventually get to a certain point and then back out of it, and it'll work. 65. Teeing this up, what is this movie about? It's very simple. It's a sci-fi dinosaur film. We would have thought that this movie has a time travel element to it, but it doesn't. And so we would come to find that Adam Driver's character is on some alien planet that is to seemingly be similar to Earth, and they are going on a 2-year mission to explore strange new worlds. And so we would come to have Adam Driver, who is Mills, who is to go onto this ship to travel the world, to come to find out that he had stumbled upon this kind of meteor shower, or a bunch of meteors in this one location, surprisingly enough, that forces Mills to crash this plane into Earth that is currently going through, in his time, the Jurassic or prehistoric period of time. So dinosaurs, and there is no cavemen involved. There's just a bunch of dinosaurs and all that jazz. So we would come to have Mills, who is desperately looking for survivors upon his ship to justify a escape pod or a rescue ship being sent. So we have Mills, who is scrambling, going on and finding only one person, who is Coda. And so during this time, we are to also realize that Mills has a family left upon his planet, and we are to start to get more and more snidbits and more things telling us where Mills's family had gone through the time that Mills has been traveling. So, and what had happened to them, while also Mills is to be going through what he's going through right now, which is to desperately trying to stay alive in a planet that is wanting to eat him. So we come to find that Mills is to be with Coda, and Mills barely speaks English. And we have Mills, who is to have the one machine that, of course, is to be broken, is his translating machine. So we, of course, have Mills, who is forced to need to figure out some kind of hand signals or figure out some kind of word that Coda can understand, like mountain or family or or this or that, to try and eventually talk to this person. We go on and have Mills, who is to bizarrely at certain moments of this movie grab onto Coda and look into her in her eyes, and it's to tell her, it's you need to listen to me, or you're gonna die. And to me, I'm just this person can't understand you, and you're telling her to listen to you. Just, don't quite get it, Mills, but okay. Alright, sure. So with that said, we come to find that the whole adventure thing starts with Mills already being at one part of this ship, and the other half of it, the place where they can actually get away from this planet, is to be at another part that is nearby a mountain. And so that's the whole adventure of the film. And we come to find during the whole part of this film, there's a bunch of dinosaurs that we see trying to kill these characters. Yeah, a lot of it does not all look that great. a lot of times I think they have to go on and try to really figure out a way to do this whole dinosaur thing on a very small budget. So I would just say that like there's certain things that are up close that look kind of well, but everything is done so quickly. Everything has to be done so quickly with the dinosaur stuff to possibly try and hide a lot of things. Or you get to see most of the dinosaur stuff probably not in well lit areas or whichever. So it's kind of one of those kind of films. Other than that, I don't think I would have much else to go on and either praise or complain about. But it's a decent enough adventure film. Comparing this movie, I don't know if I've stated this already, so I'll state it now. This feels like the Will Smith After Earth movie. So there's a plethora of different kind of movies that you can probably go to before you go to 65. So check out the Will Smith After Earth film. I get it, it's Will Smith, but still check it out anyways. This would go on and probably remind me of the Mark Wahlberg Planet of the Apes film. But that Planet of the Apes movie, like, it seemed to have like a really big budget. And this movie just, so yeah, so I'm really listing like a lot of big budget things, but anyways, there was also like I remember a Star Trek episode where Star Trek Next Generation episode where Picard was teamed up with some alien character, and it seems like they were like exchanging stories with one another, and Picard had to figure out how to talk to this guy, and so like that whole episode kind of reminded me of this 65. We also had a Dennis Quaid movie where he was teamed up with some alien, and I think at some point like they had a child together by that film, and they really did like fall in love with one another. Those two characters. I guess I would have to compare that movie to this also. I don't remember the title of that film, but you can probably scroll through Dennis Quaid movies, and there's been very few of them that he's worked with aliens in the past, so probably easy to narrow down. Moving on, so with that said, I think it's about that time to just double fire this bad boy up. I think it's spoiler time, and let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. So, in the very beginning of the film, we come to find Mills, Adam Driver, who is with his wife, and they, of course, are talking about the next mission that Mills is going to go on to. And I guess the missions before were like 6 months in time, and it seems that now Mills is going to have to go on to 2 years out on his exploration on the ship out in space. And we have Mills who's with his wife, and he's like, yeah, I have to break this to our daughter that I have to leave that long. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to be gone for 2 years. This sucks. So we go on to have his daughter, who's just kind of out on this beach, and she's trying to do like her thing that her dad is doing with like whatever she's doing with her hands. And he's like, no, don't blow down, blow up, dude. Whatever he does. So we go on to have it seemingly her figure out to somewhat do it. Somewhat, and so he's like, no, you're doing this. So it's a weird, goofy thing. So Naveen, Naveen, I'm gonna go with Naveen. I didn't really know what her name was because I didn't see it enough times in the movie or hear it or whatever. We have her go on, and so Mills' daughter states like, well, hey, I know you're going away. And she's like, well, how long for? And he tells her 2 years. And she's like, well, you're just going because of me, because Naveen is sick. And she, by Mills leaving, is going to get the care she needs because, like, they are going to pay Mills's wife to go on this exploration. So like Mills will be getting paid for the time that he's gone. So uh, Naveen is like, well, hey, you're leaving because of me. It's like, no, like I'm leaving for you. So you can go on and kind of fight this sickness that you have. So Mills goes off onto this ship, and it seems like he's the only one actually awake. Isn't this kind of convenient? And we come to find that this is almost like a Pitch Black moment. If you guys ever remember that Vin Diesel movie, where the girl is to come to find out that they have to like crash land the ship, and it's on this kind of deserted island, which they find out that there's monsters there. So it's kind of like Pitch Black in a way, a little bit, but there's a lot more like survivors in Pitch Black than there is in this film. But it's similar. Mills goes on to need to kind of swerve his way through these meteors that were surprisingly to have occurred. And so Mills is going on and like mating. He's having to crash land the ship. So we have Mills that crash lands the ship. He finds out that he has to kind of like pull something out of his chest, this little metal shard, and he then seeks out he seeks out a first aid thing that can freeze his chest, so it'll heal. So we then have Mills that is to try and go on and check if there's any real survivors left, and it seems that he only goes on to find that there's one. So Mills goes on to like be in like this spacesuit, and he opens up his suit to realize that there's breathable air here. So when he goes on and makes his call stating that he thinks that there's only one of him left and there's no point to need to send a rescue party, and he didn't realize that he could possibly find someone else, we have Mills that also tells people, hey, breathable air here, isn't that great? So Mills goes on to find this other pod. And so while doing so, Mills comes to find out like what kind of life is to be on this planet, which of course is Earth. So Mills goes on and is to see like these kind of smaller dinosaurs and this one bigger dinosaur off in the distance, hidden away via brush or tree or whichever, so you can't really see anything. And then all of a sudden Mills gets attacked by this smaller dinosaur that is to be quite the size of maybe like a very small raptor-looking dinosaur. So he's getting attacked. It like jumps out of nowhere, scares the crap out of me the very first time I saw this because I wasn't expecting it. And so Adam goes on and uses his rifle thing that we see here and starts like batting it away and kills it. And so he just kind of like pokes at it, just like, all right, well, it's dead. Great. So there's so many little tiny details in this movie. I probably won't get everything. But so Mills also goes off to eventually be like surprised by this geyser, which will actually play into the later part of the film where he'll come back to that location to hopefully have it be a thing that he could take down a bigger dinosaur with, which in all honesty, that was such a goofy scene where we just have the girl who comes in and saves the day, and that was weird. That I was like, that seems very unbelievable, but whatever, it is what it is. So, but let's go further into this. So, we have Mills that goes on to find the pod, opens up the pod, finds the girl, retrieves her, makes his way back to the ship, and so he's letting her sleep, and because she's been in cryo for a very long time, cryo meaning, of course, like these people were put on ice, and I guess maybe these people were to have awakened in shifts, and so that, of course, is to be the reasoning that all these other people supposedly that were with Mills weren't awake because they were all in cryo, and most of them had died. Moving on. So Mills is to, of course, check on the girl. She's still not awake. And so Mills goes on an adventure. And so while Mills is going out, he eventually sees Coda. And he goes on to like grab her, and he's like, well, hey, like you were with me, you were on my ship. It's like, well, hey, like you were just in cryo for a very long time. So we have Mills that is going on and trying to talk to this girl and kind of telling her all of this update and everything like that, and like crash landed, didn't know where they are, all this stuff, and the girl doesn't speak English. And so he's like, well, what language is that you're speaking? So Mills goes on and is to have to draw, like, from this kind of sand, out of this, like, red sand, he draws this picture, and he shows this mountain. And he's like, we need to go to the mountain to find this other part of the ship. And so he draws this mountain, and then he goes on to draw that they need to get to the top of this mountain, and for them to find the other part of the ship. So he draws the ship, and then he draws they're going to go back to their own planet. So we have Coda, who is to go on and draw these stick figures and call them family. And Mills is like, yeah, like we're going to this other part of the ship to find your family, which I was like, okay, give her a goal or something to just get her there. Because we come to find out that Mills realizes that she was a part of a family. Like, parents were with her, and we would come to find out that Mills is trying to break it to Coda at some point in the film that Mills tried to drag Coda here so that way they can just both get off this planet. Because her parents are actually dead. Sadly enough. So, Mills and Coda go on this journey, and we have the two of them who end up going on and kind of find like one dinosaur that is like struggling in this tar pit trying to get out of here. Is like, I'm struggling. And so Coda like runs to the dinosaur and helps him out. I'm like, how is this gonna just be a stupid idea? Like, this dinosaur is going to eat them after it gets help. But so Coda goes on and is to drag this thing out here, and we have Mills that is to go on and help her out. We also had Mills that was to get a bug that like landed on the back of his neck, and he like slapped his neck, and then he realizes like, ugh, I have like a booger, like that's just this like really just stretching thing, and he's like flinging it, and he's trying to like just scrape it off against some wood, but then he realizes the wood piece gets stuck in his hand, and so he's just like, bah! And then we have Mills that is like trying to play with the girl, and it's like, well, hey, I have a sticky hand now. It's like, you're gonna get stuck. But yeah, so Mills and Coda, they save the dinosaur, and immediately after they go on and save this dinosaur, the dinosaur gets attacked and killed by a bunch of these little tiny baby raptor looking things. And so I was like, ah, you saved that dinosaur just for him to die it anyways. Still a horrible and miserable death. So the two were going on and hiding off to the side, and that's when Mills is grabbed Coda. It's like, you need to listen to me or you're gonna die. So we have Coda that goes on to like be tossing these berries at Mills consistently, to the point of him finally catching one And so Mills tells Coda, it's like, hey, don't go on and eat these berries because like you're gonna go on and you're gonna eat it, and like it's gonna ruin your stomach, and it's probably gonna kill you. So we have Coda that's like blah, like because Mills is like blah 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 with the belly, so it's weird. We have them go on and get water at some point, and Mills is telling Coda, it's like, yeah, I'm just tired. I'm just tired. Like, I'm just tired, and he's like, no, I'm tired. I'm tired. No, no, that's not what I said. So yeah, so Coda's like, or Mills is like, take some water. Just drink something. Just don't say anything. So Coda drinks out of the water, and she realizes that the thing is empty that they're drinking from. And he's like, well, refill it up. Come on. So she goes on, refills it. So we go on to eventually have our characters who like continue on this journey. And so it's kind of very hard to have figured out what exact dinosaurs were actually when and where. I think at some point we do get some not Nothosauruses that go on and start attacking both Mills and Coda here. Nothosauruses. Nothosauruses. Nothosaurus. Nothosaurus? Nothosaurus? Nothosaurus. Nothosaurus? Let's go with Nothosaurus. That sounds cool. So, we have the Nothosaurus go on and attack both Mills and Coda. Separates the two of them. And so, Mills is going on and shooting the Nothos. And we have Coda that runs off. She runs off to find out, like, when she's kind of, like, backed against this piece of wood, she is surrounded, seemingly by these, Desangaripturus. The D-Song. These little bird-like creatures that have, these, like, goofy-looking faces, and they have, like, these they're kind of like pterodactyls. They really are, pretty much like that, but they're a little bit goofier looking. It would be like a weird combination of like a bird pterodactyl, it somewhat looks like. Or maybe a duck pterodactyl. But anyways, so when Coda goes on and sees these D-Songs, she then is to try to get around these dinosaurs, these little bird dinosaurs, to then find herself right into the mix of the Nothos, and she is to kind of be climbing up this big tree, and this big broken tree trunk. And so she's crawling to get away from these dinosaurs, to have at one point where Mills is to shoot the Nothos, and then Kara ends up getting grabbed, and she's getting pulled by this dinosaur. She's getting dragged by it. And so Mills ends up kind of shooting his rifle in the air, and the dinosaur goes away. Everything is to happen fairly fast-paced for this film. When it gets to the action parts, they don't really slow that down for that. So Mills is looking at Coda, and Coda is just like huddling in the side, and she's just like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Like, I almost died like 18 times. We also had Mills, and this is how all this started. Mills was going into a tree, trying to look up where exactly, how far they were from the ship. and he was using his device. And when he saw that there was a bug on his hand, he tried to like fling it off, and that all of a sudden surprisingly like broke the tree branch that he was in, and he starts falling from the tree, and he falls to the ground, and he broke his arm. And so he's kind of using like the Mel Gibson from like Lethal Weapon thing, where he's like trying to like smash his shoulder like back into place. And so we have at one point where Mills is kind of using Coda to get his arm back into place. And so he then is to get the rifle and start shooting all these Nothos, and that's when Coda starts running off, and we get to where Coda is by herself with the Nothos. Mills goes on and shoots the Nothos. She gets dragged off. We're back to where we are. So we have Mills who's telling Coda, it's like, okay, like let's get out of here, let's run off, and let's move. And Coda's like, no. So he's like, oh, okay, well, we'll just stay here then. So she stays, and so does Mills, and we get to a point where Mills is going on doing the that thing again. And so she eventually goes on and does a similar thing, but like with her fingers in her mouth, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. So they would go on and they're like, okay, like let's just kind of find a place where we can kind of sleep for the night. Let's put these motion sensor things around us, and we'll be good. We come to find that Coda is to find these kind of like projector video things that are to show like Coda's daughter, and it's to show all these videos. She kind of when Miller isn't looking and Coda is kind of looking for stuff, she finds these projector videos and starts watching them. We come to find out that there's some time that has passed where Mills's daughter is to be kind of happy or missing her dad, or there's certain times where we find that hey, yeah, like I have all these IVs behind me because things aren't going really well. And then we also go on to have her do another video where she's just really tired, and it looks like she's probably sick, and things aren't going well. So we would go on to have Coda, who is to consistently use these like projecting videos and whatever to just kind of play at certain points, because Coda is to see a girl that is like her, and that's the kind of fascination of it all. We go on to have at one point where Mills is to see, it's like, well, hey, how did you get this video? And because he doesn't want to go on and really watch any of them, in all honesty, even though like every once in a while he'll just pop one in, but still, because really he remembers at that moment that he was to have lost his kid. We go on to have, while Mills is sleeping, him having a nightmare where his wife comes to him and is to through a video tell him that they had lost their daughter, that she wasn't in pain, she just kind of faded away and this and that. And so it was like, yeah, like this guy lost his daughter that he went on this mission to do for instead of because. So this whole mission was to be pointless, and he was to probably die while doing it, and man, would that have sucked. But so we would come to find that Mills, when he gets up and is to wake up Coda, because the motion sensors are kind of going off, we all of a sudden come to find that Coda has like this bug or something in her mouth, and I'm like, bah, gross. we come to find that Mills is to kind of break off this one little device to kind of hit into this thing to crush this bug so that way Coda can breathe again, and she is just kind of playing this out. So when Coda and Mills seem to like get up, they realize that the hole that is in part of this cave, we then all of a sudden realize that there is a big dinosaur that is to make its way to them. So I would assume that this is to actually be one of the either Tyrannosauruses in this part of the movie, or it is to either go on and be the Tyrankylosaurus. Tyrankylosaurus? I'm going to call him Tyrank for short. So, we have both Mills and Coda that it's like, okay, this thing is trying to come in. We need to get out of here the other way. So they're starting to like cram into these little nooks and little spots to then find that they've reached a part of this cave where they can't seemingly get easily further out of. We have Mills that is trying to just kind of mine with the little chisel like tool thing. And so he realizes that they don't have enough tools to get further out of here. So we have Adam that of course is to be really tired because I'm sure he has like barely slept. And we have Coda that's like, well, hey, like, let's go on, let's move, like, let's family, let's go mountain. And so Adam's like, no, we don't have enough tools, like, we can't get out of here. And the further and further that Coda is repeating what mountain tools, whatever. And so she's repeating all this stuff. And Mills is finally just grab Coda and tell her, your family is dead. Your parents are dead. I'm sorry. I lied to you to get you here. But your family is dead. And so Coda still doesn't understand. And Mills is just like, whatever. Just like, Mills is done at this point. He's exhausted, and everything in here is just going to eat him, and he's going to die. He believes. So Mills is to have to kind of take a breath, and he's like, wait a minute. Like, they still have the little balls of explosives. And he's like, okay, let's just kind of use these explosives. Let's toss them down there and start to get through this place that way. So Mills uses the explosives and he starts to see that there's this like really small little place that can go on and just kind of just crawl through there, just laying down and just making their way. So it's a very like small, like very tiny hole to be like crawling through, and goes on. It reminds me of like movies like Descent, where you just have like the group of girls that are all going through these like little tiny spots where they're like mountain climbing through and or crawling through. But so anyways, in these caves, it's crazy. So what happens is we have Adam and we have Coda that end up like separating between them because there's to be this kind of rubble that falls in between them, and so now Mills can't get any further to of course Coda, but Coda, when she gets out of where they are, she ends doing the little whistle thing, and she tells like Mills that she's okay in doing the whistle. So he hears it and he's like, oh, okay, she's fine. So Mills now has to go on and figure out a freaking way of how he's going to get out of this cave. So he goes back from whence he came. And when both Mills and Coda were making their way into the small little place that they were going into, we would see that some dinosaur would also be in that cave. So when Mills would go on to get to a certain location of this cave, he would start to find out that he's not alone. So he starts to try to go on and use this device to try to figure out if there's something nearby, because this place is just dark anyways. So we have the dinosaur that goes on and attacks Mills here. We would come to find out that this is the Oviraptor, which how this is kind of different from the normal raptor, as like this raptor has this kind of like huge weird like fin like thing that comes from it's kind of like a horn kind of thing that kind of comes out from the top of its head, and it's to kind of look more bird-like, this version, head-wise. A lot of times I think when in pictures it has like feathers and stuff like that. That's what I'm kind of seeing on Google for the pictures of it. But yeah, so we would have, of course, Adam, who is like defending himself. He's like the dinosaur is kind of biting onto his arm. He's trying to wrestle with it. He's trying to get to it. He's trying to kill it off. And so eventually he tries to get to his gun and is to take this thing out. So we come to then have both Mills and now Koa, that is to get back together again. They make their way to the mountain. They make their way to the ship. And by the time they go on and make it to the ship, they start to realize that, like, man, like, we have to figure out a way to make the ship work. And we all of a sudden start to find, in the meantime, that they are getting attacked by what is to basically either be the Tyrank, dinosaur of which that we had seen earlier, the Tyrank Leosaurus, or we start to see some just T-Rexes coming in the mix here. So we of course had Mills kind of up his level of power for his rifle, and so we come to find that Mills is trying to rush out and face off against this this large, either let's go with T-Rex because that's easy. So we go on to have Mills, who's just kind of firing away at this thing, and by the time he goes on and takes one of them down with this rifle, he comes in to find that there's like another one that he shoots in the eye, and by the time he completely takes down one, he finds that the other one that he had shot in the eye is back in town. So now Mills is coming to find out, it's like, man, I can't just go on and use this rifle on every one of these big monsters. So Mills just starts running off to the geyser, which that he known exists from before. And so he's running to this thing, hoping that this geyser will take this monster down. So we have Mills runs off to this geyser, and so the geyser goes off right as the T-Rex is to be there, and we have Mills is like, oh my god, what a relief. The geyser must have did it. It killed it. No, not so much. The T-Rex shows its face, is like, hey buddy, I'm still alive. We then go on to have the girl that just comes out of nowhere with this stick that she found when she was facing off against that little dinosaur when she was on her own, realizing that she has to defend herself now because Mills is not there with the rifle. So she has this big long stick that by the end of it, she had this bunch of the red fruits that she just smashed together and put at the end of the stick. So Koda like runs in, has this end of this spike of this stick thing, or this like long, like this big huge massive bone thing that she found, and she rams this thing into this T-Rex's eye, and that goes on to just kill this T-Rex, and it falls over. We had at one point where Mills was like shouting out to Koda when she was back on the ship and he was trying to take down this monster. He's like, launch the ship! Yeah, I don't think she's gonna figure that out there, buddy. So we had both Mills and Coda who get back to the ship, and lucky enough, because Mills was to have to go on and try to explain to Coda also that there is a meteor that is making its way onto Earth that is going to crash and kill uh, the Earth. And so they have to kind of quicken this pace up. They have to really go on and get out of here to survive because this huge meteor is coming that was a part of these other little chunks of meteor. This big thing is going to wipe out Earth to have it start all over again, with Earth having to uh, eventually be what eventually becomes. Yada, yada, yada. Anyways, so we then have Mills and Koa that go on, get the ship going off. They are able to get off this planet, and everything is hunky dory. And so that's how we kind of like finish up this movie. And with that said, I'm gonna go on and just get out of here. Yeah, very much similar to Pitch Black in a lot of ways. But anyways, so definitely check that out if you can conveniently find that movie. Also, just finding a bunch of other movies that people can go on and check out before or instead of needing to go and rush to the theater to check out 65. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.